Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dan Murphy, and today on Talk Tech to Me, I'm going to try to predict the future using AI. That's right, I'm going to build an AI model that will look at all the historical Premier League games and try to predict what the scores are going to be tonight. On the time of recording this, it is Wednesday the 3rd of December, and there are 6 Premier League games tonight, and I'm going to predict the scores for all of them. So let's get into it. Now, the first thing I did, I went to football-data.co.uk and I went to Start Data. And here you can find essentially the data sets for all football stats, essentially going back forever. I'm going to focus on English football and then Premier League. And I went through every one of these and got the Premier League data for the last 20 years. I think 20 years worth of data is enough. All that data was in CSV files, was in my downloads folder. So, where's my mouse gone? Yes, create a new Excel file called master. Master dataset. In here, I done a data pull where essentially I took in all the data from all those files, because it all has the same header, didn't really matter, same header for all of them, and then put all the data here. Next thing I done was I gave them genuine titles, because a lot of this was abbreviated into sort of shorter form version of it all. So instead of, full time away team goals, it was FTATG, which an AI would have absolutely no idea what that is. So I give it all full proper headings then as well. There was a couple of columns which we absolutely did not need, and I did not include them. And you can see way over on the right hand side, it actually brings in the odds from all the different major betting companies in the UK as well. I left it there just in case it's ever needed, and if you want to pull it in maybe iteration 2, but for the purposes of this, I just left it all. I didn't even bother expanding on the titles. But all the important stuff was there, what the score was, who the referee was, halftime score, full-time score, and then stuff about red cards and yellow cards, which I kind of thought was interesting. I might be an indicator then as well. So I had my data set. It was saved in one giant file. Next thing I had to do was convert to a CSV, which is a file save as, change the format, CSV format. Next thing I did is I opened up Antigravity. And this is the prompt I use. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to put it in Antigravity. This is going to take a couple minutes, so I'll talk over it while it's doing its thing. Basically, I want to build an application based on Gemini 3. So the application has to look over the historic data set that I've given, this 20 years worth of data. And inside that, it has to start looking at the probability of what team is going to win versus the other team then as well. So if you're looking at a Manchester United versus like a Brighton, if you know what I mean, it's going to look over every game those two teams have played against each other and what the correlate sort of scores and win the loss ratios have been. Now, I am acutely aware that the Premier League nowadays is full of a lot of money that didn't come from the Premier League. So you have the likes of Man City there, which is a massive backing from Etihad in the Middle East then as well. And Man City was a terrible team for a long time. Up until like the last 10 years, they were, struggling to ever get into the Premier League. So if you look at the historic data set for a team like Man City versus what it looks like now, there's going to be a massive bias there as well. So one of the things I wanted to bring in was essentially a bias meter. So if you wanted to favour modern data versus historical data, well then you can sort of change the slider on that. Certain teams have been consistently good or consistently bad throughout the entirety of the Premier League's history. The likes of Arsenal. They've never got relegated. They've always been like top 10 team. Won it a couple of times then as well. So looking at historical data for Arsenal makes absolute sense then as well. So I wanted to be able to sort of tell me whether it was historic data was relevant for these predictions or not then as well. A couple of the features I wanted to do then as well. I wanted to show what the ratios are going to be. So how many goals you think that both teams are going to score. And then the probability factor then as well, represented as the percentage then as well. So the percentage is, 50% chance is going to be hard to tell. If it's an 80% chance, yes, it's going to be sort of closer to home than go forward. I let this run. Essentially, it was next, or agree the whole way along until we actually got to the application. So yeah, let's skip to that. A couple of minutes later, it gave me an output file. So I went into my folder structure and it was index.html. And this is what it brought me up. Looks pretty cool. But straight away, there was a problem. As you can see there, whenever I go to select team, it's not giving me any teams then as well. So a bit of an issue at the minute. Everything else looks initially being okay. So essentially, back to the drawing board. I gave it the prompt saying there was no teams being pulled in with this. It converted it from Python to C to JS and ran it again. So yeah, let's skip forward to the next one. It took about 6 months for they actually build the application and fix those couple of issues along the way then as well. still months quicker than I ever could have built this thing. Open up my HTML file, and I want to check what the first game is tonight. So good old BBC Sport. I'll go there. I think it's Arsenal Crystal Palace. Let's see. I'll get there in a second. Yep, Arsenal Brentford. Okay, it's my first game then as well. So I'm going to input that one in. And yes, all the teams are loading. It does shorten some of the names, which is nice. And I'm going to say, yes, used essentially the most up-to-date data. And there we have it. Yep, so the predicted result is Arsenal are going to win. 1.8 goals to 1.3. 64% chance, or 64% chance is... So the accuracy rating of that as well. So I've gone through that and actually made a few more little small changes then as well. I've cleaned up this here so it gives you essentially the goals or the expected goals instead of the that fractional, because let's face it, people deal with whole goals and not fractions then as well. I also expected goals, I left it in there, and expected red cards, because that is one thing which I know people like to bet on, the likelihood of a red card. Everything else functionality wise is still the same. I've been playing around here with Manchester United versus West Ham, and you can change to the expected outcome to whether it's going to use historical data or modern data. And historically and modern times, Manchester United has always been beating West Ham. And if you look at maybe the red card expectations, so 0.5 to 0.9, I'll change this down here, and it goes from 0.4 to 0.9. So yes, slightly higher expectation of a red card in this game, but still way too low to ever actually put some money on. Maybe if you looked at like a Merseyside derby, which has always been a heavily contested game, it might have a higher chance of probability of a red card then as well. But for all intents and purposes, this is working really well. Pick your teams. Villa, Man City. Oh, 1-1. And let me change the modern times. Oh, that's interesting. So if you're using the historical data only, and you're looking at Man City, Aston Villa was drawing with Man City, but if you look at them in more modern times, as in the last sort of 5-10 years, it's actually showing Man City is going to be beating Aston Villa then as well. And yes, the percentage increase and the expected goals is driving going to increase it. So it is doing what I wanted to do when it comes to historical data then as well. Now, I have made some predictions. Let me open my results. And let me make this a bit bigger. So yes, of the games tonight, and there's one game tomorrow night then as well, this is my prediction. I'm going to put that down in my video description, and then I will do another video afterwards to see how close it was. So Arsenal Brentford, Arsenal 2-1, 64% chance that's going to happen. Bromley versus Crystal Palace, 1-1, 52%. West Brom versus Aston Villa, 2-1, 55%. Another 55% between Wolves and Nottingham. Leeds versus Chelsea, 57%. It's going to be a Chelsea then. Biggest one so far then, Liverpool versus Sunderland, which is 2-1 to Liverpool, which is interesting because it does take into consideration historical data and current form. It doesn't take into consideration seasonal form. Liverpool have had a really bad run of form. I think they won their last game but lost the previous 5 or 6 games to that. It also doesn't do Champions League as well, which might affect some of the team's performance then as well. It also doesn't affect social factors, whether they've just changed the manager or something big has happened in the club. So there's lots of other factors which I'd love to try to factor into this. And last but not least, my own beloved Manchester United versus West Ham, 2-1, 60%. It's a solid bet in my opinion. So yes, on to the conclusion. And so there you have it. Within 20 minutes I was able to find a dataset, clean it, make it suitable for what I needed, get rid of all the trash, built a very simple application with some really good, interesting features that was able to give me a relatively ballpark figure on accuracy for how well these football games are going to go tonight. At the time of recording this, it's afternoon time, games don't have for a couple of hours. I'm going to get this video up online as quickly as possible, and then I'll do a follow-up video then tomorrow to see how close I was, maybe just a wee short, so comparing all my results back and forth against each other then as well. You can see really quickly the power of this. Like, that application was built within 6 minutes. There's 4 or 5 other factors I would love to integrate into it as well. sentiment analysis, maybe bringing in social media and seeing how these companies are being perceived, or these football teams are being perceived online, and whether that has a direct effect on the causality of scores and results then as well. But for an experiment, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I've really enjoyed making this video, and I can't wait till tomorrow to see the results. So I've been Dan Murphy. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.